In the year 2009, in Manhattan, New York, a 36-year-old man, Roderick Covlin, had refused to work and had been living off his wife's money for the last 10 years. His wife, a 47-year-old woman, Shele Danishefsky, who was a mother of two, was a very wealthy woman. She was a financial advisor and a businesswoman. Her husband lived on gambling and playing backgammon. All he knew was to abuse her and cheat on her with several women. His wife could no longer stay in their toxic marriage, so she divorced him. However, when she planned to remove him from her will so that he doesn't inherit her hard-earned money, Roderick murdered her on the night of December 31st, 2009, while she was in her home and their children were asleep. Murdering your ex-wife because of her wealth is considered pure wickedness. This is the story of Shele Danishefsky. Shele Danishefsky Covlin was born on July 13, 1962, in Manhattan, New York. She was brought up in an Orthodox Jewish community, and they were very active members of the local Jewish community. She had a sister who was known as Eve Karstedt. After her high school, Shele went to college where she studied marketing. After her graduation, she got a job as a financial advisor in New York. After living in New York some years, Shele, who was now 36 years old, attended a Jewish singles party. In February 1998, the party was held in a bar known as La Bar Bat, and the event was organized for people who had the same faith as her, and the bar was located in the Hell's Kitchen neighborhood of Manhattan. During the event, she met a man named Roderick Covlin. Roderick was 25-year-old years, and he had also been brought up in an Orthodox Jewish community. So when the two met, it was love at first sight. A few hours later, Shele called her sister Eve and told her that she was on way to Las Vegas to get married to Roderick. Her sister convinced her not to rush such an important decision in her life. However, she didn't pay any attention to that. The couple got engaged, and 6 months later, they got married in a happy ceremony, which was attended by friends and families. They then lived at the Upper West Side of Manhattan, on West 68th Street. In the year 2000, the couple welcomed their first child, a very beautiful daughter who was known as Anna. During the early years of their marriage, the bond between Rod and Shele grew stronger, and they became inseparable. The couple were very much active in their local Jewish community, and their marriage was perfect at the beginning. Shele was working hard in her career, and she kept climbing the career ladder, and she became senior vice president for private wealth management at UBS. Roderick, on the other hand, tried to make a career as a stockbroker, but couldn't succeed. Shele wanted her husband to be successful just like her, so she funded his venture. Unfortunately, her husband showed lack of interest, therefore his businesses ended up failing. Instead, he showed interest in his wife's money, so he decided to live off his wife's wealth. He also developed an obsessive passion for backgammon and gambling. After he initially won a few games in gambling and backgammon, he decided to earn a living through them. He would go on day-long trips around the country to participate in different backgammon tournaments. When he was home, he would spend hours playing the game so that he can get better at it. Later on, he secretly started looking for women to date on different websites and social media platforms. Women became another addiction after backgammon and gambling. One day, he contacted nearly 40 women on Facebook in just a single day. And to make matters worse, most of those women were backgammon players, and he had met them during different tournaments. At this point, backgammon mattered more to Roderick than his wife and daughter, and soon differences started arising between them. His wife realized that they didn't have as many things in common like before. Roderick started having sudden anger outbursts, something which made Shele to think that he was a bipolar. Soon, Shele got pregnant again, and she found out that she was going to have twins because of the toxic environment at home. Shele had a premature delivery, and unfortunately, during the delivery, one of her babies died while still inside her womb, and the other one died shortly after she had given birth. And more bad news came in. The doctors told her that she won't ever conceive again. However, Roderick and Shele still wanted to have another child. So in the year 2006, they resorted to an egg donor, and they welcomed their second child, a baby boy whom they named Miles. Unfortunately, the toxic environment in their marriage didn't stop. Roderick frequently reminded Shele that because of her, they had to use an egg donor to get their son. Later on, Roderick told their son, Miles, that Shele was not her biological mother. 10 years later, that is in the year 2008, their marriage had become too toxic and damaged beyond repair. Roderick even ended up asking Shele for an open marriage. She got disgusted, and she rejected the idea. Roderick's streak of infidelity also has worsened. He joined a Jewish dating website known as JDate under a fake name, James Early. By January 2009, Shele was completely fed up with her husband's anger issues and infidelity. She confided in her sister, Eve, that she was scared that the toxic environment in her marriage could lead to something bad for her and her children. In April 2009, Shele decided to live separately to avoid issues with her husband from affecting her children. However, in spite of all of these, she still loved her husband very much, and she didn't want him to be separated from his children, so she leased an apartment across the hall in the same building. She then asked her husband, Roderick, to move into the leased apartment. Her husband did so, but within a month, he forcefully moved his stuff back into Shele's apartment. By mid-May 2009, Shele realized that there was nothing that could be done to save their marriage, so she filed for a divorce. The situation forced Roderick to move back to the apartment across the hall. The couple then officially separated, and Shele gained her freedom back. She placed her full focus into her career. She also started seeing other men. Her ex-husband Roderick was not happy with her progress, and so he decided to make her life a living hell. He put up spy cameras in the hallway, and he also installed spyware on her computer to monitor all her online activities. Roderick also falsely complained to Shele's boss that she was using drugs and was also draining their joint account. He did all of this so that Shele could be fired from her job by her boss. Fortunately, the boss was aware of their situation, therefore Shele was not fired from her job. On July 8, 2009, Roderick took the children without permission from Shele, and he failed to return them by 8 p.m. When Shele tried to call him, she was unable to reach him, so she contacted the police. Meanwhile, Roderick took the children to Columbia Presbyterian Hospital, where he falsely accused Shele of abusing the children. However, his claims were quickly dismissed, and the children were returned to Shele at 5:30 a.m. early the following morning. Roderick then filed a complaint with the New York Police Department's Special Victims Unit, but the investigators deemed his claims as baseless, and they closed the case. The family court judge overseeing their divorce case limited his visitation rights, allowing him to see his children only under court-supervised conditions. Additionally, the court ordered Roderick to pay $425 in child support to Shele. Roderick claimed that he couldn't pay the money, so the court forbade him from spending on gambling, and this enraged him further. His anger soon turned physical, and he choked Shele. He also threatened to kill her. Fearing for her and her children's lives, Shele obtained a protection order against Roderick. At this point, Roderick was still part of Shele's will. But on December 29, 2009, she decided to permanently remove him from her will. So the following day, which was on the 30th December 2009, Shele left her children with a babysitter and went on a date with someone she had met online. She later returned home that day and spent time with her children before putting them to bed at 10:13 p.m. On the 31st December 2009, she logged into her WJ Day profile. But a few minutes later, she logged out. This was the day she planned to meet her estate attorney so that she can settle her husband's matters for good. Unfortunately, that morning, Shele's 9-year-old daughter, Anna, woke up at 7 a.m. and went to her mother's room to wake her up. Unfortunately, she didn't find her in her room. Anna then went to the bathroom, and upon opening the door, she screamed in horror when she saw her mother lying face down in a pool of blood. She immediately called her father, Roderick, who rushed to the apartment. Roderick then pulled Shele out of the tub, and he called 911. He then performed CPR on her lifeless body. When the police arrived, they found Shele's body in the rear bathroom. Roderick claimed that Shele had slipped and hit her head on the bathtub during a morning shout. He then pointed to a cabinet above the tub, and he partially pulled off hinges as evidence. This made the investigators to believe that Shele's death was an accident. After questioning both Roderick and Anna, the officers concluded their investigations and they informed Shele's family of her death. While at the office, Detective Rodimer was reviewing the case details despite the evidence pointing to an accident. That is when he noticed that the position of Shele's body and the angle of the damaged cabinet didn't align with Roderick's account. On top of that, Shele's body had bruises and scratch marks on her face, lips, and right arm, which was unusual for someone who had fallen in the bathroom. Therefore, he knew that something was amiss. When the detective Rodmer investigated Shele's activities from the night before her death, he discovered that Shele had received a keratin treatment and was instructed not to wash her hair for 72 hours. That is also when he remembered Roderick claiming to have pulled Shele's body out of the bloodstain water, yet his shirt was spotless when he was speaking to officers. Detective Rodimer chose not to conduct a full forensic investigation. Instead, he decided to wait for the autopsy. Unfortunately, Shele's ultra-Orthodox Jewish family opposed the autopsy due to religious beliefs. With limited option, the case was officially closed. Shele's sister, Eve, revealed that Shele disliked baths, preferring showers. Shele's friend, Stephanie Goldman, added that Shele rarely even took short baths. Therefore, there were suspicions surrounding her death. After her burial, suspicions grew that she'd been murdered by her ex-husband, Roderick. Shele's estate attorney, Lance Meyer, informed the family that Shele had planned to meet him on the day of her death to remove Roderick from her will. Roderick stood to inherit $5.2 million if Shele was dead because he was still in her will. Armed with this information, Shele's family urged the authorities to reopen the case. Detectives Rodimer and Francis Brennan explained to them that they couldn't proceed with the case without an autopsy, but the family still refused their request because of religious reasons. So the detectives hired a private investigator, a man named Michael Swain, to uncover the truth. During his investigation, Swain found that the cabinet hinges were intentionally loosened. Therefore, Shele, with her lean body, couldn't have pulled them off, even in a fall. He also noted the absence of a bath towel in the bathroom. This was odd, since Roderick claimed Shele had gone there to bathe. 2 months after Shele's death, her family consented to an autopsy. The authorities received a court order to conduct an autopsy on Shele's body. The autopsy was performed on March 1st, 2010. The autopsy report revealed that Shele's hyoid bone was fractured, which was a common sign of strangulation. After the report, Shele's cause of death was reclassified from an accident to homicide in April 2010. After that, the investigators waited for 2 months before they could be granted a search warrant for Shele's apartment. Meanwhile, the investigators interviewed people who interacted with Shele before her death. Her friend Melissa Shields stated that she met her a few hours before her death, and she sensed that something was wrong. When she asked her what was wrong, Shele told her that she felt that her ex-husband, Roderick, was following her. When the investigators interviewed Roderick again, he refused to cooperate with them, and the investigators had to investigate him further. They uncovered emails and phone records showing that Roderick was in contact with a woman named Deborah Oles from North Carolina. They also discovered that Deborah was a married woman with 3 children, and she was a backgammon player. The investigators also found out that the Deborah was having an affair with Roderick, and she had visited him in New York, and they had played backgammon together until 1:03 a.m. on the night Shele died. The investigators discovered that on that night, Roderick sent Deborah a text at 4 a.m. stating that he had fallen asleep. When the investigators analyzed CCTV footage at Roderick's apartment, they discovered that Roderick had left his apartment at 4:13 a.m. and returned shortly and gave the doorman a Snickers bar, which is an unusual gesture for someone typically antisocial. The investigators estimated Shele's time of death to be between 1:25 a.m. and 4:25 a.m., coinciding with the period Roderick was not in contact with Deborah. When the investigators interviewed Deborah, she spoke positively of Roderick, and she provided no incriminating information. In July 2011, Roderick was barred from accessing the $5.2 million Shele had left him due to the ongoing investigation. Their two children were placed in his parents' custody following a custody battle with their maternal uncle. Roderick's parent discovered that he had stolen $84,000 from the children's college fund to finance trips with Deborah and backgammon tournaments. His parent then confronted him for stealing his children, and they went ahead and banished him and Deborah from their home. Roderick was enraged, and therefore he devised plans to kill his parents so that he can regain custody of his children and also access Shele's money. He planned to use his daughter, Anna, to poison his parents. However, he later on abandoned that idea and he considered breaking into his parents' home, murder them, and then set the house ablaze. He then shared his plans with Deborah, but unfortunately, Deborah refused to participate in his evil scheme and instead urged him to abandon his evil plans of murdering his parents. When Roderick realized that he was about to be arrested, he attempted to frame his daughter Anna by drafting a false confession in her email. The email alleged that Anna pushed Shele during an argument, causing her death. In the year 2014, Deborah distanced herself from Roderick. She eventually broke off their relationship, and she later contacted authorities and revealed to them everything she knew about Roderick's plans. She provided hard drives containing data from his devices, which indicated he killed Shele to inherit her wealth. On the 1st November 2015, just 2 months before the 6-year waiting period that would have granted him access to Shele's fortune, Roderick was arrested. In the year 2016, he was charged with second-degree murder of Shele. His trial began in the year 2019 at Manhattan Supreme Court. Prosecutors argued that Roderick had long intended to kill Shele, and they presented their case to a 12-member jury. Despite the evidence being circumstantial, they highlighted Roderick's motive and actions. One key witness, Patricia Swenson, who was his former girlfriend, testified about his anger towards Shele during a trip in August 2009. After an 8-week trial, the jury found Roderick guilty of murdering Shele, and on April 10, 2019, he was sentenced to 25 years to life. His appeal was rejected, and he remains incarcerated at Attica Correctional Facility in New York.